Hey there, it's another beautiful day. Let's watch some stuff.
It's a project first dreamed up by the military to get information from the battlefield.
They call it smart dust, and the new technology may soon make it possible to keep track of anything, anywhere, including you.
Smart dust originated with DARPA back in the 90s. This powder-sized chip is something called the Mu chip from Hitachi. It's the smallest commercially available RFID system in the world. You can literally scatter this stuff like dust or embed it into a sheet of paper. It doesn't require a battery. Flecks of computing power settling on your skin, ingested, monitoring you inside and out.
The nanoparticles are designed to go under the radar of the immune system, and so they are undetected in the body.
We have computing everywhere. We have connectivity everywhere. We have infrastructure that can compute those with new capabilities like AI.
If you have enough data and you have enough computing power, you can understand people better than they understand themselves, and then you can manipulate them in ways which were previously impossible.
Transhumanism is a growing movement that aims to use technology to modify our bodies, sometimes in radical ways to make them stronger, faster, and better.
I know I've used that clip or something like it on this channel before, but we were just talking about the fog and smart dust. And I don't think that the fog is actually smart dust. I think it's just fog or snowfall in some areas, and it's being ramped up to be more than it is. Because the government wouldn't do something so obvious. And there are a million other ways to get those teeny tiny little things onto your person.
So we built a lot of complex systems to moderate content. But the problem with complex systems is they make mistakes. Even if they accidentally censor just 1% of posts, that's millions of people. And we've reached a point where it's just too many mistakes and too much censorship. The recent elections also feel like a cultural tipping point towards once again prioritizing speech. So we're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms. More specifically, here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to get rid of fact checkers and replace them with community notes similar to X, starting in the US. After Trump first got elected in 2016, the legacy media wrote non-stop about how misinformation was a threat to democracy. We tried in good faith to address those concerns without becoming the arbiters of truth. But the fact-checkers have just been too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created, especially in the US. So over the next couple of months, we're going to phase in a more comprehensive community notes system.
Well, that is just fan-freaking-tastic. I wonder if they're going to do some kind of retroactive implementation where they remove strikes and stuff like that from people that didn't deserve them based on this new criteria. That would be good. It'd be nice if the GoogTube followed suit.
Okay, here's my theory. I'm going to try to keep up with the codes. This is like the third time I've had to record this. All right, so I'm going to start off with Occam's razor, right? Simplest explanation is the most possible. And so this is just so that I can sleep at night. I've been scouring the internet trying to figure out like what is the most likely answer here. And I think it has to be that they are preparing for a Carrington event. Okay, we are under very strong solar storms right now. We've had 3 big coronal mass ejections in the last 24 hours. There's news saying the northern lights can be seen as low as Ohio. That's pretty low for the northern lights. It's not as low as it has been throughout this year. There's been parts of Southern California that even saw it. Texas saw it. So it's definitely been an increased year for solar output. The Dior bags are ours, and they're monitoring radiation, solar radiation, electromagnetism. Again, I don't really know. I'm just connecting dots here. At night, so that they can potentially shut down the grid and protect it. Whether they can even protect the grid, I don't even think we're not necessarily sure. But to try to protect it from electromagnetic damage, okay? And it makes sense because they're taking off and landing from bases, right? So San Diego is a base. Ohio has a big base. New Jersey has a big base, okay? So that checks out too. And then the fog thing could just be a warm winter, but the smart dust, again, if it contains tiny sensors, transmitting weather, electromagnetic data, radioactive data, who knows? But This just connected a lot of dots for me so that I could sleep. If it helps you, great. If not, no big deal. Catch y'all later. Go touch grass.
What a brilliant theory. Like, they are our drones, and that's what they're doing. They're preparing for another Carrington event, and that's why they're like, oh yeah, we know what's going on. Don't worry about it, even though they're not telling us what the hell's going on, because they know something's a-coming, and they're preparing for it. That is absolutely fantastic. I still don't think that the fog is smart dust.
Did you know if you separate 6 eggs, start beating the whites, add 1 tablespoon of beef gelatin, then continue till stiff peaks form, gently fold in the yolks, then cook with some butter on low heat, you would have just made delicious, fluffy, 0-carb pancakes.
So that wasn't supposed to be in there. I had saved that recipe because I wanted to try it, and I did last night, and it was disgusting. And it made me think about how people who are like vegetarians or vegans, they make stuff that tastes like the stuff that they're trying not to eat in their particular diet. And as a carnivore, I was like, yeah, that's a great idea. I'm going to try it. And normally I'm just like beef, butter, eggs, bacon. That's it. Oh, and other meats. Yeah, but that's it. And I don't try to make it into the thing that I'm trying not to eat. And I was like, what the hell? Let's give it a shot. And it's disgusting. It was so bad. It tasted like farts. It was so gross. And I'm just realizing, don't do that. Just eat what you want to eat. Don't try to make it into something that you're trying not to eat, because that's dumb.
I will never forget the fact that when they first invented light bulbs, they could burn for 100 years. But the light bulb companies wanted to make more money, so they made them burn out every year or so. And I realized that we don't use incandescent bulbs anymore. We mostly use LED. But I think about that when I remember what corporations think about us as consumers. They hate us.
They don't hate us. They love us because we give them money. Not only that, but as everybody's switching to all these LEDs and we're using Energy Star appliances, our electricity bills haven't gone down a single bit. So what the hell's going on there?
In the 1960s, Ivan France conducted a meticulously controlled study that would shed light on what actually happens when people cut out saturated fats and eat polyunsaturated vegetable fats instead. The study, which would be called the Minnesota Coronary Survey, took years to set up and had more than 9,000 research subjects. Since people were living in institutions, they could control exactly what the people ate. It ran for 5 years, from 1968 to 1973.
The patients in France's study would go for their meals in the cafeteria and get one of 2 trays. But one tray was food cooked with vegetable oil. The other had everything cooked in saturated fat.
This was a beautifully organized study. There was lots of money, nothing, no holes were barred to try to do a good job.
The patients on the vegetable oil diet did end up with lower cholesterol than the people who ate food cooked with animal fats. But the vegetable oil people didn't live longer, which made no sense.
For whatever reason, Ivan France sat on his data for 15 years. Until he finally published the results in 1989.
There's no good evidence that reducing saturated fat makes you live longer. The best clinical trials we have reach the opposite conclusion.
Yeah, seed oils are so bad for you. I always use butter, tallow, duck fat, or bacon grease. I love bacon grease. It's so delicious. But as far as him not publishing those findings for so long, I feel like maybe he had a gag order for that period of time while the narrative was implanted into all of the people's.
Wouldn't it be crazy if the Tesla Cybertruck bomber was still alive? And wouldn't it be crazy if before the events took place that day, he emailed a manifesto out to various social media influencers and outlets? And wouldn't it be crazy if that in these emails that Matt Livesberger sent out, it claims that he was being followed by government entities for his vast knowledge on what's going on with all these drones flying over America? Wouldn't it be crazy if he claims that these drones are using gravitational propulsion engines and have been tested on poor populations around the world? And wouldn't it be crazy if the body they pulled from the Tesla truck had a bullet hole in its head? And wouldn't it be crazy if the DNA from the corpse did not match Matt's child's DNA? And wouldn't it be crazy if both Matt and the F-150 New Orleans attacker both went to Fort Bragg for training? Yeah, it's not adding up.
All right, so I get a little bit guilty because the compassionate side of me wants to leave this alone because it's a tragic event and this guy lost his life and we don't know why and we're all ripping it to shreds. But the conspiracy part of my brain is like, let's go. And there's a lot of interesting stuff surrounding this event. which is crazy. I've been watching Sam Fisher's channel. He talks about how this guy may have already had his bucket kicked before the Tesla made the trip because it like stopped in the wrong Las Vegas on the route. And then it went on to the right Las Vegas. So I don't know. Plus, supposedly it was a Desert Eagle, which is a 50 caliber bullet. That's a big bullet. It does a lot of damage. So how would they recognize him? What if it wasn't him? Because face gone, right? Yeah. Check this out.
Hey, again, it's probably nothing. You can see the Cybertruck that was out in Las Vegas, how burned it is, how charred it is. But listen, this is probably nothing. Here's a weapon that is obviously disintegrated and burned, as you can see. But listen, it's probably nothing. And the reason I say it's probably nothing is because, look, the guy's driver's, his government ID, it made it through the fire. It's hardly even burned. And look, there's his passport. It's hardly even burned either. Listen, it's probably nothing. Just go with it.
As much as I want to say that this guy was just trying to get a message out to the US government, like, hey, I got PTSD, we got soldiers coming home with this terrible affliction, and y'all are doing little to nothing to help them out, and that's why he did this. I want to say that so badly, but there's so many red flags. Like, why did the IDs not burn, but everything else did? And why are the explosives in the back so amateur when this guy has like some serious training in that department? There's a lot there.
If you come into my pharmacy, if your grandma comes in and she tries to fill a prescription, I'll give you metformin. My cost on metformin is roughly $2. I would sell her metformin for $4. As soon as she discloses that she has insurance, I have a gag clause. I am not allowed to tell her my cash pay price. I swipe her insurance card, Blue Cross, whatever it may be, boom, copay $10. And she gets her medicine, I charge her $10. Immediately when I swipe that card and I enter all that in the computer, I get a $7 clawback. Where does it go? It goes to the PBM. So you give it, like, I could have saved her $6, but I can't disclose to her that. And now the money, the profits, I make less money, she pays more money, and the money goes back to the big insurance companies.
Absolutely true. Oh my goodness. So in a previous life, I was a pharmacy technician for a spell. And the pharmacist that I worked for was actually an amazing guy. And he would sell some of these patients that needed this medication for the cheaper price. Because he's not making a profit off of it anyway. The money goes straight to the insurance companies. And at the end of the month, anything that they didn't get digitally, he has to pay them. That's how it works.
On April 12, 1983, James Ridley awoke from a 67-day coma at St. Mary's Hospital in Detroit, screaming about the mouth in the void. What followed would disturb neurologists and philosophers for decades. Ridley, a 34-year-old auto plant worker, had suffered severe head trauma in a factory accident. Upon regaining consciousness, he began describing what he called the true reality, one he claimed to have witnessed while comatose. "We're cattle," Ridley told Dr. Sarah Klein during his initial evaluation. "This, everything, it's just a feeding pen. There's something out there, bigger than galaxies, keeping us distracted while it feeds." He described a vast, ancient entity that maintains our perceived reality as a form of cosmic anesthesia. Most disturbing was Ridley's insistence that he had begged the entity to return him to the simulation. "I couldn't bear it," he repeated. The scope of it, the horror of knowing. Ridley's EEG readings showed unusual patterns that experts couldn't explain. His brain activity suggested he was simultaneously in deep sleep and a state of extreme alertness. 3 weeks after waking, Ridley vanished from his hospital room. Security footage showed him walking calmly into the parking lot at 3:27 a.m., looking upward and simply stopping. The final frame captures his expression, described by investigators as absolute recognition.
That's almost like that clip we saw a couple weeks ago with the quantum glasses, where our planet is just a digestion sac and we're all just being digested. That's crazy. Oh, that's actually pretty terrifying for him to have actually shown alertness while he was in a coma experiencing. Yeah, I wouldn't want to experience that either. That sounds horrible.
This is a concern. The first ever bird flu death in the U.S. was reported in Louisiana. State officials say the patient was over 65 years old, had other medical conditions, but this comes after more than 60 people in the U.S. were infected with the bird flu last year. And of course, as people are starting to see more and more headlines about bird flu.
Here we go again. It's just a matter of time before they're trying to get everybody all lined up for marshmallows. No, thank you.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau bending to months of pressure.
I intend to resign as party leader, as Prime Minister.
Monday's announcement capped more than 9 years leading our neighbors to the north, an era stretching from the Obama years, through frequent disagreements with President Trump in his first term, and more cordial ties with President Biden. Across Canada, Trudeau faces the same kind of political pressure upending other incumbents around the globe. Soaring prices, housing shortages, and a general shift to the political right. And last month, Trudeau's finance minister resigned, citing differences including how to deal with the new Trump administration after the president-elect announced a plan to impose 25% tariffs on Canadian imports. That led to a late November visit to Florida by Trudeau to meet with Trump. But Trump has continued to mock Trudeau on social media, writing Monday, "Many people in Canada love being the 51st state," suggesting the whole country could merge with the U.S. But it was domestic politics that Trudeau said drove him to leave before the next general election later this year.
It has become clear to me that if I'm having to fight internal battles, I cannot be the best option in that election.
His party will need to select a new leader by March, as Trudeau exits the political stage.
I'm sure a lot of Canadians are really excited about this news, so good riddance, Trudeau. And a lot of other leaders are finding themselves on the wrong side of the woke agenda, and they're getting ousted. Change is a-coming, the whole world round.
Look at the two faces in these trees, one here and one here. Notice the eyes. I want to share with you all how these interdimensional entities teleport themselves out into our dimension by shooting themselves out in the form of orbs. The name used in the past for these orbs were rods or skyfish. It's always been speculated that rods were interdimensional, but this, I believe, proves this. Yes, they are interdimensional beings who watch us. These orbs aren't just in the trees. They're in the clouds, sky, ground, and everywhere. I've captured them everywhere. The trees and clouds are just a medium that makes these entities visible from behind the veil.
I will never look at certain things the same again, because you know me, I'm all on board with the interdimensional beings and interdimensional light beings and plasmoids and aliens and all that fun stuff and dimensional crap. I'm all on board with all of that stuff, and now anytime I look at something and I see a face, I know it's just anthropomorphizing it, but now I'm going to be like, great, they're watching us. I mean, I know they already are, but now I'm going to see them watching us and all kinds of other stuff now, too.
This man claims to be part of a government conspiracy involving time travel, portals, and secret government technologies. Andrew D. Basiago claims to have been a child participant in DARPA's Project Pegasus. He claims that the US government created teleportation in 1968 using arrayed radiant energy by using saved Nikola Tesla document in order to create a vortal tunnel or vertical portal. He was brought in to participate in 1969. Currently, he pioneers a truth movement to release information regarding Project Pegasus to the public. He was also an independent candidate for the 2016 presidential election. This is a post he used to run with. He tells an interesting story regarding a boy who was in the program with him, who didn't travel through the vortal fast enough, and upon arriving at their destination, his legs were severed because he had arrived a fraction of a second before his feet. Let me know what you think about his claims in the comments.
I really have a hard time not believing this stuff because I think Nikola Tesla did invent some incredible things, and he was just labeled a kook his entire life, so nobody would give him any credit. Yet he just sat there and he just kept working away and creating all of this stuff, and the second he kicked the bucket, they were there so fast to swoop it all up. And how many of those trunks were missing? His family said, what, like 10, 20 trunks, something like that? Yeah, the government has all that crap, and they're doing crazy stuff with it. Maybe that's why DARPA is so far advanced.
The votes for President of the United States are as follows. Donald J. Trump of the state of Florida has received 312 votes. Kamala D. Harris Kamala D. Harris of the state of California has received 226 votes.
That was super uncomfortable to watch. Now, I don't know how she usually presides over the Congress, since that is her job. That's the vice president's job. I don't know how she is with the gavel, but looked like she was like, I'm done with this, bang the gavel. And then she had to proceed to bang the gavel after everybody else was announced.
Biden bans offshore drilling in Atlantic and Pacific days before Trump takes office. President Biden announced an indefinite ban on offshore oil and gas development across more than 625 million acres of coastal waters, stating that the environmental risks to coastal and marine environment in those areas outweigh their limited fossil fuel resource potential. With President-elect Trump set to take office in 2 weeks and pledging to boost domestic energy production, the ban may be challenging to reverse. While Trump could issue an order to revoke the designations, similar to his attempt at reversing the 2017 President Obama's Arctic and Atlantic Ocean withdrawals. An Alaska federal court rejected that move in 2019, and no appeals court has ruled on such reversals.
How absolutely vindictive and spiteful. The only reason he did that is because Trump was like, oh yeah, drill baby drill, which is going to be good for the American people. Why would you do that? It's childish. It doesn't make any sense.
President Biden's actions yesterday on offshore drilling, banning offshore drilling, will not stand. I will reverse it immediately. It'll be done immediately. And we will drill, baby, drill. We're going to be drilling in a lot of other locations, and the energy costs are going to come way down. They'll be brought down to a very low level.
I sure hope he's able to repeal that. Now, I don't know how significant these waters are, where they are, and if there is actually oil beneath them. But if there is, I mean, it would be a great thing for our country. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any damn sense.
Does snake venom and its impact on the body physically of a mammal or the prey, would it have implications to increase blood clotting? Yes, it does. Would it have implications to actually increase the speed of cancer growth and creating cancers that are in remission to being metastatic? Oh yeah, for sure. So absolutely that could be a compromising factor to why it is you're seeing such accelerated cancer growth.
All right, now I'm still pretty stupid about this, but I just picked up this information on something that Sam posted like 2 years ago. Apparently, these snake venoms are used in certain kinds of medications, and people ingest the medications, and then the medications come out of their body, which goes to a wastewater treatment facility, and then eventually it becomes drinking water. Gross, I know, but that's how it goes. But this stuff, it doesn't come out. It's this snake venom, and allegedly it's causing an increase in metastatic cancer. So it's metastasizing. It's going throughout the body because of this snake venom that's in our drinking water. And it's been years now that this has been going on. I'm going to learn more about this stuff, and I'm going to bring it to you because this is all new to me, and it's incredible.
Atrazine is an endocrine-disrupting herbicide that turns about 10% of exposed male frogs into female frogs. In humans, it lowers testosterone and sperm quality and causes infertility, along with other hormonal issues. You're most likely being exposed if you eat any non-organic corn products, but it's in all sorts of other crops as well. And of course, it gets into the water supply, where it not only affects all the wildlife, but it's one more reason you should only drink filtered water. Do you really need a source? Trust me, bro.
And I know that certain types of amphibians are able to change their gender based on the population, but that's not a population situation. That's it. Here, we're going to expose you to something that we're exposing all of the people to all of the time. Is 10% like acceptable or something? Because it feels like it is, if that's what they're allowing to be in our water. I know there are like parts per million of stuff that is just disgusting that we're allowed to have in our municipal water, and that's terrible.
Black box warning on Ozempic, Wegovy, Zepbound, Trulicity, Byetta, you name it.
All of them have a black box warning that this Gila monster venom and the venom protein, for those interested, is called Exendin-4, EXENDIN-4. Black box warning is within 12 to 36 months, you will develop medullary thyroid cancers of all kinds. Oncologists around the world, after seeing my interviews about this drug being made from venom, have told me it's not thyroid cancers they're seeing in all their Ozempic patients. It's exploding breast cancer diagnoses in them. You're going to see every form of cancer from these drugs. FDA just added another warning that it causes gastroparesis. Do you know what that is? Paralyzed stomach for years, meaning you will vomit every day for the rest of your life. And there is a CNN article from last year says hundreds of thousands now have paralyzed stomachs that cannot be reversed for years after stopping Ozempic. Anybody with diabetes, this drug is promoted for diabetes. It is published. It worsens and speeds up diabetic retinopathy. Do you know what that is? You will be blind faster.
Oh, we see this a lot with the pharmaceutical industry. They have a drug that goes through trials and stuff like that, and then they're like, okay, we can use it, and they release it amongst the public, and people find other uses for it. Because this was originally a diabetes drug, and then people started using it to lose weight, and what it's actually doing is it's making your stomach think that you're not hungry, so you don't eat, and then your stomach stops working, and that's the end of it. That's terrible. It's kind of like how fen-phen came out, right? And if anybody remembers or has heard about fen-phen, it was a drug that came out to help housewives stay skinny. And it was just methamphetamine, which is bad. So then they had to pull it. So I think Ozempic's time is pretty limited. Just like the clips I pulled for you today. I have run out, so I'm calling it. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me. Please come on back in a couple of days. We're gonna watch some new stuff. I'll say different things. It's gonna be fantastic. Until then, have a wonderful day. Now I know that certain types of amphibians. My candle burnt out. All better. Where was I? Amphibians. We're gonna start that over.